Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This episode of Fallout Friday is brought to you by Onnit, your landing page, the one-stop shop, the only place that you need to be looking for your total human optimization. Onnit.com/hot. You're going to know you're in the right place because the podcast logo is right there saying you're going to receive up to 10% off when you check out. And depending on how much time you have, that's how deep you can go. Across the top, supplements, nutrition, fitness, apparel, sale, and of course, content. Maybe you like written word, spoken word, visual. I don't know. I don't know what you're into, but I tell you what, like I said, depending on how much time you have, you can dig as deep as you want to. Once you get the macro of your life dialed in, your recovery, your diet, your sleep, your training, then you should start looking at the micro. And it has some of my favorite products from Onnit right on the front page here. The Alpha Brain, which is a nootropic, Power Food Active, which is a protein powder, but has also a host of micronutrients, some fitness equipment, and then, of course, the Total Gut Health. That has everything that you need to optimize your gut health. Onnit.com/hot. This episode of the podcast is also brought to you by Rhino Safes. Now, I know on the podcast, I'm not going to say all the time, but often firearms will come up. And if you listen to the podcast, you've probably heard me talk on Friday episodes about Christensen arms. What's crazy to me when it comes to firearms, maybe it's only hunting rifles, whatever it might be, the statistic that blows my mind is that 50% of gun owners do not own a safe, which is insane to me. All right, when you're talking about what these weapons are designed to actually do. Rhino Safes make some of the highest quality safes that I've ever seen on the market. They come in a variety of fire ratings, but all the way up to 85 minutes at 1400 degrees, 12 gauge steel. Some of them have up to a 76 long gun capacity with a patented swing out gun rack, which makes accessing your weapons even easier. Go to, I'm going to recommend just rhinosafe.com, normal spelling, RHINO, and then put a safe on that.com. Go to the products page, specifically the safes, and you're going to see a variety of categories for a variety of purposes and a variety of sizes. Small, larger, stuff you could put in your garage, cabinets, vaults, fill in the blank. Also, don't think that safes are only for guns. If you just got out of the military or you've gotten out of the military, put your documentation in there as well, your DD-214, your will, whatever it may be, whatever you want to keep safe at all times, you can look at putting that in there in addition to your weapons. Rhinosafe.com. Do the right thing, protect yourself, and protect your valuables. And that's it on the business side of the house. You guys know the rules for Fallout Friday. Today, my guest to help me answer these questions is my dad, and I'm going to let him speak for himself. Fallout Friday 51. Enjoy.
Okay, got the red smoke. Gun run, north or south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke. Okay, copy, west of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now. Come on with it, baby, give it to me, I need it. Get cleared hot. Copy, cleared hot.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
So I put a social post up saying that we were going to sit down and do a podcast. And I received, there was 280 comments.
Is that a lot?
It depends.
Yeah.
For a non-controversial post, yes, I'm going to say that's a lot of engagement. I'm not joking that at least 1/3, if probably not close to 1/2, the only thing that they want to know about is your mustache. Because the picture that I put up was the one of you holding me with the camera strap and just full on glorious Tom Selleck mustache. So we have to start there. How long have you been at what age were you when you could grow a mustache?
13.
Didn't you get sent home from school for having a mustache at 13?
Yeah, I did more than once. We'd go on these hunting trips with my dad and my grandpa and my uncle, and we wouldn't shave. So, you know, you got something you're proud of, you bring it home, and I'd go to school, and I was usually sent home by the second period, you know, go home and shave. They didn't allow me to graduate out of the 8th grade. I graduated, but they wouldn't let me go to the graduation ceremony unless I shaved.
I don't know a lot of 8th graders who are in that conundrum.
There wasn't many.
There is a guy I do jiu-jitsu with. His name is Ryan, and I swear to God, if he shaved at 8 o'clock in the morning, he'd have a beard longer than yours.
Yeah.
And he actually grew up in the trades as well, doing concrete.
Yeah.
here in Montana, and I guess at the age of like 13 or 14, his dad was like, "Hey, here's the keys to the truck. I'll see you at the job site."
Yeah.
It's like, who cares? He looks old enough.
Well, it was just one of those things that I had, and
I'm actually happy. People will ask me, the second probably most likely comment or common comment was, "Andy, you're not living up to your legacy by growing a mustache like that." And you and I both know I can't.
Yeah.
I didn't get those genes. And we know who did. It's
Yeah.
not me.
Yeah, Riley.
Riley and perhaps Casey.
Oh, yeah, Casey. Yeah.
I'm not saying she has a mustache. I am saying you might be able to make a sailing rope out of her back hair.
Yeah.
Sorry, Casey. Don't get pissed at me. I'm just joking. Ish.
But now the mustache stayed with me. I grew one off and on in the service as long as they'd allow me to. And then I got home from the service, and I just started growing a mustache. And I've had one ever since.
Did they allow mustaches while you were in?
Not stateside. We could when we were overseas. And more just for cleanliness. I got rid of it a couple times. It was just, filthy. But it was... I intrigued the Vietnamese people. They used to they used to look at me and they go, "Oh, you same monkey," and they'd come up and touch you. It was like being part of the zoo or something.
All right, I don't know where to go from that. Very interesting. Bunch of questions.
Sure.
We have as much time. We have as much time as we want. So
Perfect.
Maybe this will be a Friday episode. Maybe it'll be a full Monday episode. So I have a bunch, but I have one that wasn't asked, probably because not too many people, or if not anybody who's in our immediate family doesn't know. But I was curious about your experiences with counseling in Montana, because I had heard from you and Mom. I mean, we never really got into it, the necessary, or not the necessary, but the reasons or steps that led to it. But I remember when we first lived in Missoula, I have very vague memories of it. Mm-hmm. I remember getting in trouble for throwing snowballs at cars.
Sure.
I remember doing the monkey fights in the gymnasium, not in the gymnasium, but the monkey bars over a slush pond that I feel like at that age it was like up to my neck, but I think now is like 2 inches deep. But we would sit there and shake each other. And then getting in trouble for skipping daycare and coming home to watch G.I. Joe on my own. Which nobody believes me that actually happened, but I did make the decision that G.I. Joe was more important than after-school daycare.
Of course.
And I knew the way home, so I went home and watched that instead, and also a good smattering of He-Man. But I remember that. Why did we move back to Missoula? I'll open it that way, because I have had, in the past 2 years, and even before then, I've had some tremendous benefit from counseling, and it hasn't been until recently that I've started talking about it. And it's probably the one thing that I'm going to continue to talk about consistently, because I get people reaching out, talking about the impact that it has had.
Yeah.
But I feel the less people talk about it, maybe from your generation.
Yeah, the counseling or moving to Missoula.
Well, one led to the other.
Yeah. Well, then we moved to Missoula. I had been teaching. We taught for a couple of years in Australia. Your sister was born there. We moved back, and I got a teaching job in Livingston, Montana. One of the windiest places I've ever been in my life, but had great trout fishing. And was offered a job teaching in Santa Cruz. I came back and was teaching there. I was Mom was glad to be home. We were all kind of glad to finally be home. And I just wasn't making enough money to raise a family. I mean, I could, but it wasn't good. We had a young family, and my dad was getting ready to retire, and I just said, would you be willing to, teach me what I need to know here? I knew how to work. I knew but I never had really worked with the tools. So I started doing that, and we were living in the mountains of Bonnie Doon.
The house we visited not too long ago.
Not too long ago. First time you'd been back here in probably 35 years.
I think so. I mean, I have very vague memories of riding.
It was an interesting time there because Mom had started a business and done really well with it. But I was I've had a difficult time in my life settling in one place for any length of time. I don't know why. And it was not difficult for your mom to move because she was raised in a military family, so packing up and moving every 4 years was no big deal.
Yeah.
So we looked around, found a business in Missoula that looked like something that we could be successful with, and went and looked at it. And your mom had only one request. She just wanted to be in a town with a college. So we moved back to Missoula. I had been playing rugby for a number of years. Got my knee blown out playing at the University of California at Santa Cruz when you were a baby. And Mom said, "That's enough." She says, "I got 2 kids in diapers. I need more help than you're getting." So I literally hung everything up for 5 years, came back, and lo and behold, there was rugby in Missoula.
A few blocks away from the house, if I remember.
6 houses away. It was way too convenient for me.
You have to remember that the distance that I was measuring was from being about 2 feet tall. So
yeah. So, it was a great experience. We worked really hard, and I was struggling with a lot of different issues. And there was an organization, it was called the Vet Center, that I was introduced to here in Missoula. It was a counseling group that was put together by veterans, but wasn't part of the Veterans Affairs. So they had a lot of credibility with veterans who didn't want anything more to do with the government.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, that was my first exposure to counseling. I'd watched your mom get started in the early 70s with Al-Anon, which was for her a wonderful thing. But it was something, with hard-working Germans, you just didn't do that kind of stuff in those days. Men just didn't do that kind of stuff. You took care of your own problems. And I bought into that narrative, but I got to a point where it just wasn't working. And Mom one morning just said, "Hey, look, you got to go get help. Here's your address. Either go there or I'm taking the kids and I'm out the door." Well, I was there in 12 hours and spent a fair amount of time there, met some wonderful people.
All right. That is our technical interruption for today. All right, so Platoon. You and Mom were watching Platoon.
Yeah, so we were watching that, and she commented to how we were all reacting to it. And in my support group, we had a gentleman, I can't remember the names for the life of me, had a home on a creek coming into Missoula. And we had some Native Americans in our group, and they built an authentic sweat lodge. And whenever anybody was having a difficult time or what have you, we'd all meet there. And they took us through the ceremony, and it was quite an experience. It was just a lot of things, personally and as a group. I've studied a lot about Native American Indians, but to have the privilege of learning about the ceremony, how it's structured, how it's constructed, and just the closeness that it brings you all to was really remarkable. And on my rugby team, we had a player who was teaching down in the valley and asked me if I'd come teach. I mean, not teach, but talk about some of my experiences. So I checked in with my counselor, and he said, "Yeah, I think you can do this." And what was amazing, he was teaching in a country school, and they probably had like 18 kids in the senior class, and it was a civics class. And so I sat down with him. I sat up on the end of the table and, was talking to him and asked him how many of them had their fathers that were veterans, Vietnam veterans. And I would say probably 2/3 of them were Vietnam veteran families, and I asked how many were living at home with them. And I think it was 1 or 2. At that time, guys were coming here to Montana and Idaho and places like that and just establishing their own compounds and had their families. But it was a real difficult time. Things were, we were all limping together there for a long time.
When you were beginning your journey into counseling, And you're looking back on it now, obviously we're talking decades ago. What was it that you either found about yourself or that you had to work your way through that was the most difficult? Was it the experiences that you had in Vietnam? I mean, specifically, or the overall just experience of being in Vietnam? Because I ask that question because I get asked about post-traumatic stress often, and I could be in the world I came from. You could be on target with 5 people and experience the same thing, even though, of course, everybody experiences it through their own eyes, so it's their own experience. But the impact and difference it could have on those 5 people is impossible to describe. One person could have no impact, one person could be devastated, and everything in between. And portions of that experience could impact people differently.
Well, it was, like you said, I was young. I was 19 years old. I turned 20 over there. Had come from a real male environment. And you experience things that just rock you. I mean, you move on or you're in trouble. And you bring that stuff home with you. You bring baggage home and, just similar to you come home and the war's still going on. And then, you deal with that. I struggled with a lot of that. I struggled with a lot of survivor guilt, just having people around me get hurt seriously, and how did I, and this and that, and just my own personal feelings of fear and guilt and all of that. I mean, I think we all deal with that. I had a lot of personal issues with family stuff, not with mom, but with my family. So there was a real baggage of a lot of stuff there. My counselor made a comment to me about 6 months into my counseling. And he says, we're dealing fairly good with the war stuff. Do you really want to deal with the issue that's tormenting you? And I go, shit, there's more to this,
Depends about what you're about to say next, Doc.
Chapter 2, and I go, okay, tell me. He says, it's your dad. He says, you vets are all like this. You're dealing with issues with your fathers. And he says, that's good things, bad things. He says, I was just that generation, of that group, our fathers, World War II veterans, what have you. And it changed my life, that counseling, of how to deal with myself and also how to deal with my father. I mean, we've just all gone through a horrific time with this pandemic and being locked down. And I plugged myself back into the VA and got into another counseling group. I just was struggling. I didn't have a lot of answers, a lot of clarity. It was just real fuzzy, and I needed help. And, thankfully they were there. And I had one-on-one for quite a while, and now I'm in a group setting where it's all done over the phone. And almost all these guys are Vietnam veterans. And once again, I mean, so many of these veterans have been so scarred by this. I could tell these guys are still limping, and I imagine we all are in some way or another, but some of these tragedies it's amazing they've lasted as long as they have.
And then try to view it from, imagine it is amazing that some of them have lasted as long as they have, and imagine what they had to endure to get to this point.
Well, I've got very close friends that I'm still in contact with today, 2 in particular, old Marine Corps buddies, one that I'm very close with. And it's we don't talk about it, but the scar tissue is there. It has shaped how we deal with things. We're different and we deal with things differently, but it's, you just see these things. I mean, it was funny when I went back to college after I got married, and it would be on a college campus, and you'd see veterans. But it was just the look they had, or how, we just isolated ourselves, and you figure this stuff out. It's there, but the counseling is it's a lifeline that a lot of people, for the wrong reasons, avoid.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times once you finally get there, it's just looking at yourself can be so hard. And it's not so much looking at yourself, but being honest with yourself about what you see. you know, and I have to stop myself every once in a while. I can just sense that, hey, you know, the rear wheel's not quite lugged in properly, and you know, I just do a self-check real quick, and I do it all the time. I have to.
You taught PE, correct?
Physical education, yeah.
What was the inseam length on your shorts? Because I feel like
that's a rather personal question.
It is. I have this. I feel like you had a whistle around your neck,
yeah,
and an inseam that was somewhere between 1 to 3 inches, just completely unacceptably short.
Yeah, it was in those days, and tight. You know, and tight. I mean, there was, yeah,
and probably socks halfway up your calves.
Oh God, of course. You know, I've never been much for decor, so I mean, you know, one sock would be long, one would be short, you know, and I haven't wore underwear since the military, so the tight shorts and you know, it was.
We'll just say it didn't leave much to the imagination.
Well, that's always been kind of the way I've ran with things, but it was. I look at some of those pictures now, and I go, oh my God, you know, I've got one from the last year I was teaching, and I got Casey in one arm, and I look, and there's I am in my short pants, and I've got a roll of tape in my front pocket. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to look at this. So, I mean, it's, you know, I've always been able to find humor in things, and my way of getting through life has been humor. I mean, it's saved me so many damn times.
Agreed.
Yeah.
All right. Into the listener questions. A lot of these, not a lot. Some of these are people, I guess, are more interested in me and how I was as a child. So here we go. 2 questions. What was your biggest hope for your children and greatest fear?
Oh, my biggest hope for them was to be happy, you know. And as they grew older, that wish changed. What I wished for more than anything was that they would find something that they'd be passionate about. You solved that really quick. Casey was such a hard worker, and finally, you know, with her work as a nurse, now a physician's assistant, having moved on to working for hospice.
The palliative care.
Yeah, the palliative care.
It only took her 1.5 decades in academia to figure it out.
You're taking me places we don't need to go here.
I'm not saying that negatively.
Yeah.
She was in the trenches.
She loves it. She loves it. Her grandmother loved it. Her mom loved it. Education, and I honestly feel Casey will end up as a college professor. I think she has that.
She's got the knowledge base.
And she's good with people. You, on the other hand, you know, I watched you talk about someone who was hard-headed and driven as a youth. I mean, I've said this before. I would have to take you to youth teams, whether it was soccer, football, baseball, and say, look, if you can't handle this kid, let me know. He's driven. But through that, it gave you a level of success that, you know, many people don't reach. You're doing it now in this. Your different endeavors that you've taken on, from CrossFit to flying. I mean, that was my whole thing, was my kids be happy and that they find a passion. I just had that same conversation with your son 2 days ago.
Yeah.
I said, find something that you're happy about, something that you can love to do. There's nothing worse than getting up in the morning and going, oh, shit, I got to go back to work.
No job title that you could ever earn that you wake up thinking, I would rather do anything other than what I am doing is worth it.
Yeah.
If you're not happy or passionate about it, I don't really care what car you drive or the amount of money in your bank account. You're going to be miserable.
I don't know what fear, one particular. I mean, as a parent, you know.
My fear is a situation where I'm not there to help and there's a catastrophic injury or death. I mean, that's probably at a biological level built into us as a parent.
Yeah. Well, you know, I don't know if I told you this. Maybe I have. You know, when you would be overseas operating, I'd have dreams at night that we were somewhere operating together.
Sweet. Were just the two of us?
Yeah, I guess.
yeah.
But my dream is you would get hurt and be calling for me, and I couldn't find you. I would wake up with cold. I mean, I'd have to get up and walk. I have cold sweats. It's amazing how where your inner psyche goes with that kind of stuff.
Who was the senior leader in that dream? Did I outrank you?
It never even got, probably. Yeah, everybody always outranked me in the military.
You can feel free to call me sir if you want to. It's up to you. I think one of the questions that comes up, I think, is about your thoughts of my career choice post 9/11. So we'll probably circle back to that. But no, you never actually did have had said anything to me about that particular dream.
Yeah.
I have those dreams about of those types of dreams about old work situations, and it's always I need to run somewhere, but I can't make myself run at regular speed. I'm like stuck in quicksand, or I need to shoot, and for whatever reason, like the gun will go off, but the bullet just as if it has no charge, and it just falls out the end of the barrel. There's always some level of not being able to do what I need to do when I need to do it, and I've had that dream about the kids, whether it be they're in a violent confrontation or from work.
Yeah.
Not a psychiatrist, but I think that's the natural parenting instinct, like I said, at a biological level.
Yeah, I think you're right.
All right. What balance between providing your son a father's guidance and allowing him to find his own way is optimal? Andy was successful finding his own path, and his path strikes me as very different than your own in academia, on the surface anyway. This is from a Marine Corps Iraqi freedom vet trying to guide his own children. So what balance between providing guidance, I don't want to say just to a child in general, and allowing them to find their own way is optimal?
You open up as much as you can for them. Give them as much information. If they show an interest, just cover them with as much information, and always be willing to talk with them. It's what is neat is when you can learn together, even if you're there's age difference. I've always felt if you stop learning, it's time to close the door.
Yeah.
But just finding information and being honest with them, and being able to develop a relationship where your kids can ask you questions.
Yeah, I think if you go too far the other way, the guidance, which could be, I think there's people out there who use the term guidance, but what they really mean is an overhanded authoritarian approach. They will say guidance because that's a little bit nicer to say than, hey, I tell my kid what to do and how to do it. I think there is a balance. I mean, you and Mom certainly let Casey and I make mistakes, but I feel like looking back, they were there was some soft boundaries there where you guys probably would have stepped in if it got out of control. But before getting to that point, the mistakes were allowed to be made, because then you can learn the lesson from the mistake itself.
That's part of the ladder you climb. It's when you expressed your desire to do what you wanted to do, it would have been quite easy to just blow it off, but we didn't. We encouraged it. We didn't put any pressure on you, and even up to the time you left, it was all that, yeah, okay, this is what you want to do. This is, you want to look at this, but other than saying no or, yeah, let's do this, we're going to get a haircut, we're going to get buzz cuts, and,
I was already doing that for water polo.
We're going to go run on the beach together or something, but it's just you keep the door open, you keep a level of communication, because it's something that will grow as your children grow. You'll hit flat spots because your children are learning. But as long as you keep your ear open, it's listening is so important, no matter whether it's with your spouse, your lover, your friends, your teammates, whoever. Listening is, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. I don't know, really, might be Buddha or something, but it's whatever.
Yeah.
There's and it's key. It really is key that we temper our enthusiasm to have the right answer, and be able to say, maybe I don't have the right answer at times. That's
I've had to say that to all 3 kids in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
I'm very open with them. Like, listen, I am at the limit of my understanding. I don't have a book when it comes to parenting.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do in this situation, but what I will do is be open and honest with you. Obviously appropriate to each of their ages and information that I think that they need to have, but I think it's a powerful thing to be able to look at somebody in any position. If they look at you in a leadership position, which I think kids look to parents, they may not articulate it that way, but be able to say, I don't have the answer. I'm trying to find the answer.
Yeah.
I think it's a powerful thing.
Well, it's a life lesson, and you these are the things you pass on to your own kids. It's it's just a progressional thing.
Yeah. When 9/11 happened, what went through your mind? And
Holy shit.
And what did you say to me the first time we talked after that?
I think I looked at you and I said, I think the friggin' world just changed.
Well, we weren't together at the time. So
No, we weren't.
Yeah.
We weren't. No.
I was down in San Diego in the apartment by IKEA.
Yeah.
The Archstone Apartments.
Yeah.
I
I didn't really know what to say. To be quite honest with you, I was scared to death. I knew the shit was on. And it's one thing to be, my son's a Navy SEAL, and all this, but all of a sudden, the wrappers came off of everything, and it's game on.
Yeah.
And I knew what game on meant for you, even though
I did not, just so you know.
Well,
I thought I knew what it was going to look like in a post 9/11 world. Well, obviously I didn't know 9/11 was coming, but I thought I knew what it would look like in a combat theater world. I was gravely mistaken.
I had just came back from a 9-day golf tournament with friends, and I was walking up, took my dog up to the golf course. It was barely sunlight, and one of the groundskeepers was waving me over, and I say, he says, get up to the clubhouse, and I sprinted up to the clubhouse and watched it happening.
Yeah.
And we lived, I don't know, 3/4 of a mile away from and I got home and I told Mom, I said, this is not good. I said, the shit's on.
Yeah.
And a lot of us didn't know what it meant. It wasn't going to be good, whatever it was. But this is.
What were Mom's thoughts about it?
Mom kept everything real close to herself. She never talked about that kind of stuff. It's very stoic lady. Played her cards real close to her vest. It was. She was such a strong person. It's just. I'm scared. I'm sure it just scared the heck out of her. But our biggest thing is if you had to go do what you had to do, you were going to be with the best people you could be with, and that gave us a sense of comfort that you can't control. I knew you couldn't control what was out there, but if you had to be in that situation, let's team up with the best team I can get on.
Well, I certainly did that.
Yeah, you sure did.
Knowing that your son was overseas in wartime, and because you understand that environment and what comes along with it, how did you keep your emotions in check or deal with that emotion?
I drank a lot.
Didn't we all?
Yeah.
Which also is not an answer to the question, because that's not keeping your emotions in check or dealing with it. Because, same family, obviously, you and I, but I was viewing all of this through such a different optic and experience. Whereas you and Mom, I didn't realize until, I'm not going to say recently because it was not like a week ago, but maybe single-digit years ago, I didn't realize the impact that my occupation had on those that were around me. The burden, because the coming and going for me, I was very focused. I would go on deployment, and it was very task-oriented. Here's your task, ding, knock it down, and then your next one, and next one, next one. And you come back, and you could attest to this from seeing it from the outside. It was just training to war, and then training to, and everything had a focus for me, though. So it was easy for me to nose down to the grindstone. And the only honest way to describe it is ignore everything else. So focus on that. But I did not put much time, if any, really, thinking about the burden and impact on those that were maybe one layer of the onion away.
Well, your mom and I talked about this because we watched you, and you were either on deployment or you were home getting ready for the next deployment.
Oh, yeah.
And then you went to Dev Group, which is as intense can be. And, we would watch you and we knew how difficult it was for you to be there but not be there, and the ramifications of that. So there was a lot of worry. There was a lot of, it's not like we didn't have confidence. It was in you. It was just that there was.
Well, you never had any control.
Yeah, it was. That's probably the most accurate way to put it. It's that feeling of not knowing, that fear of getting a call from Jamie or the military, of it's just this constant. It's there, but you ignore it. I worked harder, I played harder. I was very fortunate to live in a community where I had old friends, so we all huddled together. They kept us close. They watched you grow up. So it was the saying, it takes a community. We had a set of families. It was a community. We raised our kids together. So it was, and you were unique. You were the only one in that group that was that hands-on. And we suffered and struggled through it together. It just. Yeah, and nobody would talk about it. That when I got notified you were wounded, I had a rugby game that morning, and I got a hold of my team captain. Everybody knew you because you used to come to practices and play with G.I. Joes. And
goddamn right.
Yeah, and so whatever I was involved in, you were with me, and so. I got a hold of my team captain. I said, this is what's happening. And our old friend Big Tony was there. Everything. Jamie got back to us. You were okay. Mom was okay. So I went to the game. And there's two teams there that immediately just came and circled around me and just let me break down. And I was comfortable to do it there. I didn't have a choice. I just did.
Yeah.
But it was. I lived in a community that provided a lot of comfort, a lot of support. And I don't see a lot of people having that luxury anymore. We're so diverse, we're so fragmented all over the place. But it's just the time I grew up with and the people I grew up with.
This one ties into something. We could have opened with this too, because we went deep down the rabbit hole to Vietnam to begin with, and
something
counseling.
Other than the mustache.
You made a comment that you were. I'm paraphrasing. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you were not prepared for the amount of change that you've seen in your lifetime. So this question: what are some noticeable cultural, political, or socioeconomic differences between now and the era in which you grew up in as a young adult and professional?
I think as much as it changed, it hasn't changed a lot of it. Obviously, the political part of it is so diverse now and is so ingrained in this group, that group. There was more participation. When I was a young man, it was the Vietnam War, and then it was the war against the war. All of us that came home and got involved or didn't get involved. We were young. I think one of the things I see today more than anything else is this vast void between those that have and those that don't.
You're talking about an economic level?
Economic level. My inseam's encroaching. So...
I'm not cutting that
out. Everybody was just working hard. Our parents had just got out of the Depression. They were starting businesses. Everybody, if you were poor, you didn't know it. Everybody was just, you had those that had more. But today, the stark reality of that is so huge.
How about politics? How was politics different when you were in your late teens, 20s, or 30s, or whenever you started paying attention to it?
It was as bizarre. It was really bizarre then, too, because you had people like Richard Nixon. The Democratic convention in Chicago where Mayor Daley let the police loose on the demonstrators. I mean, just nasty stuff that was going on. The Watergate, Iran-Contra. I mean, there's always been these things. We've just, a personality like we just, the last 4 years with Donald Trump, he was such a unique personality. Just not cut from any mold that you had ever seen in a politician. I think one of the biggest divides I see today is the lack of cooperation at the highest level that we need. Even if people didn't always agree, but they got along. You know, we got to make this work. And I don't see that attitude of we got to make this work. I'm right, you're wrong, and goddamn it, that's the way it's going to be. It's just, I was a senior in high school. Was I senior? Senior or just out of high school when the civil rights legislation was enacted. And people of color are still struggling today. So, I mean, as much as things change, a lot of things don't. I mean, immigration was not an issue then.
What do you make of, and I'm not sure this is the right description, but the social issues, not necessarily of the day, but what are often talked about when it comes to either gender and identity?
Oh, boy.
I mean, well, and to put a little bit of context to that, you coach an all-women's rugby team where you are presented with people who are navigating these waters themselves. You were telling me, offline about whether it be the pronoun or how, I don't even know if I'm saying it correctly, how somebody identifies. That has to be a slightly stark comparison to the world that you grew up in. What are your thoughts on that whole thing?
Well, again, like so many things, in my time, things like that were just it wasn't discussed, and that's not saying that's good. I'm not saying it's bad, but I can't imagine what it would be like to be a parent or a person who identifies themselves completely different than, for lack of a better term, the norm. I don't even know what norm is anymore. But having to live that and negotiate that. So in many ways, I support it completely because now they can negotiate those waters. They've got a support system. There's a place for that they can be recognized, be productive and happy. There's so many people I feel when I was growing up that weren't happy. There was no social network for them to take this. A lot of it I don't understand, but I support it. I had given up much faith in the younger generation until I started coaching these women. And once I did, I ran into a generation of people. Every generation has had a rallying cry. And this generation, a lot of it, beyond the sexual things, has been the environment. And they've given me a hope. They're driven, they're educated, they're wonderful people, and they're passionate about it. They're young, so, I mean, they're going to make lots of mistakes. I mean, you get all fired up. I mean, in my day, we grew hair. You had long hair, colorful. We're experimenting with every drug that was out there. It's just, as different as some things are, they're still the same. But I think with the young people today, having that support system, and even though they're getting a tremendous amount of pushback from a lot of segments of society, I think it's progress. We all have different views of whether it's right or wrong. That's not for me to say.
Yeah.
I love these people. I know who they are, and I know the struggles that a lot of them have. And I'm just glad they've got some network now that allows them to take that voyage and have some safety rails.
Did you know
No.
that I was different than most kids my age growing up? First off, what I'm going to say is I don't actually feel different than anybody else around me. But having said that, I've only experienced life inside of one body. So
yes, I went stark raving mad your first day in kindergarten, and you were wearing barrettes in your hair.
No, I wasn't.
Yeah, you did.
Welcome to the fucking show. That's how I roll, apparently.
You Yeah, well, you were different. Yeah, you were stark raving mad different in a good way.
In comparison to what, though? I mean, let's lay some context out there.
I worked with young people, being in PE and what have you. I've worked with lots of kids from youth sports to college sports. But you were just driven. You were so stubborn. And I mean, I've brought this analogy up before. If you didn't get your damn way, you'd hold your breath until you passed out. I'd never seen anything like that.
So 6% of kids will do that. I researched it.
Let's
It's
say
not that
94% aren't.
Well,
but
I'm part of the elite.
You were very driven. Whether it was you were playing with your toys, whether you were building something, making a sandcastle, whether it was your sports. I mean, you were just driven. You were, and it was a shock to a lot of people. A lot of people on your high school water polo team didn't like it. You wanted to show up and train and get better. They just wanted to show up and play. And, that attitude has taken you to where you are today. You have a passion for what you do. And there's A-type personalities and the various mix. And, it's been fun to watch, and I'm still enjoying it.
Glad you're enjoying the show.
Well, that's part of parenthood. That's part of parenthood, and if you're not doing it, you're missing the best part of the show.
So this one's specifically for you. What would you do with your time if you could be 25 years old again, but you were guaranteed to live at least to your current age?
Am I married?
You can create whatever world you want to.
What would I be doing?
If you could go back to when you were 25 and you knew you were going to live to how old you are today.
Oh, God. That'd be dangerous. Oh. Boy, that's a tough question. I've enjoyed my life so much and have been blessed to live in a lot of different places and do many different things. I had a wonderful wife who... your mom who supported every crazy notion I had.
I'm not going to use the word every.
Well, no. I got slapped back every once in a while. But I have lived an idyllic life. I feel very fortunate. I've now, have another wonderful wife who finds me completely odd. But I guess, my friends are finding this relationship intriguing because they're going... Oh, you're now have to put up with what we have for the last 40 years. What do you mean I don't have to wear that pair of shorts? Why are you wearing that pair of shorts again? Or, it's just different. I guess what can say is I've had a variety of experiences. I haven't had to be locked into one thing. I don't know if I'd do a damn thing differently.
Let me change the question a little bit. What advice would you give yourself, your 25-year-old self, if you could go back in time? Because I've answered this one on the podcast before. For me, it would be slow down a little bit and enjoy the present.
Yeah. When you're 25, you got more lead in the pencil than you know what to do with. And you really do miss a lot of it because you're burning track up right away.
Focused on the next. What's the next thing going to be?
Exactly. And I think just slowing down is probably a good thing that gets ignored a lot because sometimes things happen you don't even realize how critical and wonderful they were for you. So having the time to step back and look at that in retrospect is just slowing down. I would have to agree with you there. That's a good point.
So this person kind of begged me to ask this one. I have no idea how you're going to answer it. What was the funniest thing that Andy did as a kid that he didn't realize was hilarious at the time?
Oh, gosh.
I hesitate to ask this because God knows where this answer could go.
Oh, Jesus, the funniest thing. Well, I honestly can't say what it was, I feel, but... Oh, Jesus, I don't know. I don't know if there's any one thing that was... I don't know. You've given me so much joy for so long. It's all been great to me. I never had brothers and sisters, and then I had 2 children, and your mom
didn't get along awesome at our formative years.
Mom would always be dragging me out of your conflicts and say, just leave them alone. Just don't do this. They got to figure this out. And I'd be right in the middle, just, blowing snot bubbles and pulling hair and everything else. But, God, it's the fun. I'd have to think about that. Oh, funny. Jesus. Good question, but it's, I don't know. I guess here's probably the funny thing I think. And it was...
Oh, God, here we go.
You had been driving... You'd been driving my bus, the old Volkswagen bus.
Volkswagen Vanagon, to be specific.
Yes.
4-speed, I believe it was.
4-speed on the floor. And you went into the military, and I took the van back over again. Well, I'm driving through Capitola. I roll through a stop sign, and police officer pulls me over. Registration and everything. And so I opened up, and it was like a kitchen drawer just kind of fell out. And there must have been 400 condoms in there. I mean, and the police officer was laughing, so tears were running down his face.
Can't write a ticket when you're laughing that hard.
And he says, "Please tell me this was your son's vehicle." That to me has got to be the funniest. I mean, it takes a lot for me to be speechless. I just took a handful out and just said, "Here," and he said, "No, just go on."
Oh, son of a bitch. All right.
That's what I said.
All right. Father Stumpf. What part of fatherhood has been the most challenging, and how did you overcome it? Or, if you handled it poorly at the time, what did you do to learn from this hardship? I am a young man who would like to be a father someday and would really appreciate your insight. So again, part of fatherhood, what part has been the most challenging, and how did you overcome that?
I think probably the most challenging part was giving my children enough space to be themselves.
I was going to say exactly the same thing. The desire to overreach and protect from mistakes that they need to make, or to put a boundary up that they need to bounce up against to suffer the consequences so they learn.
You see them making a mistake and know they're going to get lumped for it, whether it's emotionally, physically, or what have you. Being able to step back and let that happen. You're going to catch them.
It goes against every instinct that you have.
And then your work, that's when you go to work. That's when your work begins. And it's what you do in those moments when you catch them. Anybody can be a great parent when your children are crushing the world.
For sure.
But when you catch them, and how do you help them bounce back, get their feet underneath them, and say, okay, let's go kick some more ass.
I agree with that answer. Yeah. Hello, Andy's dad. Could you tell us why you took the little sprout along with you to work? Because I have talked a few times about, one, my unacceptable wages when I was 11 working for you. Did you even have a choice, or did Mom tell you to take me to work with you?
No, she told me to take me to work with you. Well, well, at that time, we had just moved back from Montana. And we were living in Santa Rosa, Sebastopol, and I went to work in the trades, and because I knew I could make money there, we needed to get a good start going. And then the earthquake happened.
I remember I was at football, like
football practice.
The only year
you played football
that Mom would allow me to play Pop Warner because she thought it was too dangerous. Surprise, Mom! I found a more dangerous job later on.
Yeah.
And we were at that practice. I was tying my shoe, and I
light standards are going.
I vividly remember thought somebody was shaking me.
Yeah.
That was 88, the Santa Cruz
89.
89.
So my dad gets a hold of me. He says, "Come on down here." He says, because Santa Cruz had leveled. It was called the Loma Prieta earthquake. And Loma Prieta was a mountain range just above Santa Cruz. The epicenter was probably 5 miles from Santa Cruz. Old town, lots of old masonry, and it was just destroyed. So I came down and said, yeah, I think I could do something here. So I I brought an old friend with me, my old rugby friend with me, Greg, and he helped me start my business. And Mom was doing well running her business. She was office manager for a research company. And summertime came, and I wanted the kids, and we,
and she had to work too.
Yeah, it's when we lived in the pit.
Yep.
And
which is the actual name that we all called it. It was
the
pit, literally and figuratively. It was basically a 0-bedroom rectangle with a bathroom.
With mattresses on the floor.
Correct.
Yeah, and clothes everywhere.
This is accurate.
And Casey was working at a preschool, and I knew what to do with you because the same thing my dad did with me, Take your knocks and let's move on.
Let me introduce you to a little thing called a brick tong.
Yes. Yeah.
I learned a lot. I learned a lot of really good lessons in those years, whether it's, looking at a pallet as 500 bricks or 6 at a time, how you chunk goals up.
One step at a time.
Work ethic or all of that stuff. And also was exposed to, I don't know, arguably some of the most unacceptable male behavior on planet Earth, all on a job site. It was quite amazing, actually.
It happened all right there.
All right. A couple more. Shifting gears here a little bit. Not to be a downer, but how did your dad move on after losing your mom to cancer? Losing a spouse is so traumatic. My mom never bounced back after losing my dad. Curious about his path because it could help others.
How did I respond? How did I bounce
How did
back?
your dad move on
Okay.
after losing your mom to cancer?
Well, Mom and I grew up together. Basically, I started dating her. I wouldn't say we were really dating. We were good friends and we'd go out. She was 15 and I was 16. Actually, I think it was almost 14, 15. But anyway, so we grew up together. And so you learn a lot about each other when you're doing that. And Mom got sick. I'll never forget it. I was laying on the couch in the front room, and she came in the door, and she just looked at me and said, I have cancer. And
well, at least she didn't beat around the bush.
No, she never did.
God damn, Mom.
Yeah, and so we started going through that, and she had 2 bouts of that, and thankfully she survived. And she had 10 years of recovery, where after 5 years, they consider that you're cancer-free. So we had 10 years of that, but the poor woman, her surgeries to correct what the cancer had done to her were horrific. And the woman never freaking complained. Never. I mean, I always wonder, I know exactly where your strength came from. It came from your mom. I mean, she's hardtack. There's no doubt about it. And I mean, I love her dearly for that. And after 10 years, during that whole time, I'm scared to death. I'm waiting for the next doctor's appointment or this. You just don't, even though she's healthy or as healthy as she can be. And then the cancer came back, and it took her real quick. And
I don't know if I would use the term real quick.
Yeah, well, it took about 6 months.
Yeah.
And it had a very inappropriate time for all of us. There's never an appropriate time, honestly, but I lived in a real small community. I used to go downtown at nights and sit on the bus stop just to be around people. I didn't know how to be around and to be by myself. I mean, I had been with her for so long. I was struggling with a lot of things. And, it just, again, it's a small community. I met somebody and we developed a nice relationship. We were friends for quite a while. And, again, I had that core group of people around me that we raised our children with. So I was always I was out there like, a piece of a mercury on a hot plate, just moving around. But I had this group around me that was always there. They were always very supportive. So the way I survived and adapted were my friends, my cousins. I'm so fortunate with those people that they got me through it. A very old friend and his wife introduced me to Debbie, and so I was vetted already. They just said, "Good luck with this guy," but it's like going to the rodeo. It's going to be a fun ride. So, and and we've ended up together, and it's been great. I mean, it's that relationship. I've been so lucky in my life with dear people around me.
I remember relatively shortly after Mom passed, you went on a pretty extended solo road trip.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, you had Buster, so.
No, I had Elvis.
Was it Elvis?
It was Elvis.
Son of a bitch, this is pre-Buster.
Mom passed away in August.
Yep.
Late September, I packed up my truck and headed out for 2 months.
So you were just talking about how that support from the community and people gathering around you. How was that 2 months where you were, like you said, you didn't know how to be alone?
Absolute insanity. Thankfully, Casey stayed with me for a couple weeks just to sort out shit. I had never had a checkbook. She had to teach me how to do a check, pay the bills. And then Big Tony came and spent a month. And it was time for him to move on. And it was time for me to have him move on. But I'm planning in my mind, I headed to Montana.
Yeah.
I went up through Northern California. I went up to the Canadian border. I came back down. I get a call, from various friends, from Casey. Where are you? And
were you just putting in miles? I mean, just windshield time?
Just driving. Elvis is sitting next to me in the truck, looking at me. Hey, Dad, we gonna pull over? I gotta pee. But and I didn't head home. I was in Ennis, in a campground where I had started camping when I was 1961 with my family on the Madison River outside of Ennis, in a little campground, and I could smell snow was coming. And within 2 days, it was on, and I barely got into Nevada before winter really hit. So yeah, it was, and that drove me home. And I circled the wagons. And
do you think that 2 months of you on the road by yourself was helpful though, even though you described it as insanity?
Well, insanity can be good. Just sometimes you got to reevaluate. You got to, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
How am I going to take care of my family? There was so many things I hadn't done by myself. Because I got married, I was just turned 21. Mom was just not quite 20. I just was out there, just plowing trails. But again, it's being able to come home and having that group of people, that family around me and friends was, I've lived an idyllic life. I've been very, very fortunate.
Do you think Mom knew something was wrong before we took her to the hospital that day? Because she was very resistant.
Well, here's, before it was, you were deploying to Afghanistan. We were going to go down and meet you and Casey and her family all in Disneyland.
Yes.
And about 3 or 4 days before that, I was out. I knew weeks before that Mom wasn't doing well. I just sensed, I could feel it. And I was out walking, and again, Dave and Carol, Turquoise Dave, they stop and say, Rab, what are you doing?
He cheats at cards, by the way.
Huh?
He cheats at cards.
Yeah. But they stopped and they said, Rab, were you okay? And I just broke down and I said, Mom's sick again. And they go, oh, shit.
Did you at that time suspect that it was cancer again?
I didn't know for sure. I couldn't imagine what else it would be. I just felt so helpless, through all of this. And
I asked the original question because she was very resistant when she was at the house to going and actually...
I couldn't get her to go to the doctor.
None of you could. Casey couldn't get her to go.
No,
you
nobody.
Couldn't get her to go. So Jason couldn't get her to go.
We're staying at your house. You and I and Big Tony go play golf. I mean, we had to wrap her in heating blankets to keep her warm. We get home. She says, "Here, let's go sit outside. We're going to make a list. I'm cooking dinner tonight," and I just lost my shit. I just said, "What? Come on." And we were coming back in the house. I went in first, and Mom was behind me. And you looked and said, "What the hell are you guys doing?" And I just said, "Mom's sick." And you said, "Mom, we're going to the hospital." Didn't even question it.
I waited until she was writing the list, the grocery list. I remember she was trying to write down the ingredients she wanted for the spaghetti.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I don't know how much handwriting samples you've seen throughout your life. She has the best handwriting that I've ever seen. And when I saw her trying to write the ingredients, and she couldn't, I mean, she was writing, but it was so drastically different than her normal writing. I knew that something was wrong.
And I could never get, and as soon as you said we're going to the hospital, I'm going, what the hell am I, chopped liver? But I'm glad that it happened, so we got a hold of Casey. She was working at Scripps at that time, set all of it up. And, it was just downhill.
What a fucking whirlwind, yeah.
Yeah. It's a funny thing about your mom. It's not funny. I'll share this with you. And I probably have shared it with you already. Even today, when shit goes sideways and I don't know what to do, I always ask myself, what would Mom do? And 99 times out of 100, that's what I do, and it's always right. She was such a unique blessing for all of us, and I was scared to death to lose her. I didn't know, honestly, what I was going to do.
I wish I could have...
Well,
so many things I wish I could have changed.
You were in a shit show. You had people to take care of. You were in uncharted waters in a lot of places. Thankfully, that plane you were going to go overseas with had some malfunction, and you got to spend almost a week with her.
Yeah.
I mean, what a godsend that was.
The end I wish would have been, I wish I would have been able to be more present. It just was...
Things happen for a reason.
It's a rough transition coming back from overseas and then being thrust back into that. And
I couldn't imagine how you felt. I mean, you fly in that evening.
It was hard to feel anything, if I'm being honest.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And I'm picking you and Jamie up at the airport in San Jose, coming back to Monterey's hospital. Holy shit. I mean, there were so many different emotions going on there. I mean, was there, I don't know, shit. It is what it is.
Next question.
Yeah.
What was your internal reaction when I expressed the desire to join the military, considering your own military experience and what you knew about the SEALs from Vietnam?
Proud.
Did you have any...
I didn't have any reservations.
I was going to say, and I say that based off the tail end of this question, meaning your own experience in Vietnam, let alone what you knew of the SEALs and what they did there.
Yeah, well, I was stationed at Coronado, started my boat schools and stuff there, and we were beginning to operate with them because we inserted them and extracted them, working on comms and what have you, and I played a little rugby with them. I mean, I was completely just. I was very, very impressed. So when you showed an interest in that, I lined up. Okay, what are the things they need to do, and you fit all those slots, and so I was quite comfortable with it. I mean, obviously, it's hard not to be a proud dad, but it was fun. It was a joy. It was all of those things to watch you go through and experience. It was. Fear, I never doubted your capability. It just, you always had this awe about you that, get out of the way, I'll take care of it. And it's just, it's, it was, 9/11 changed all of that, but I mean,
it goes from conceptual to practical real fast.
Real quick. And again, I knew if you were going to go in the military, that group stood above most, if not all. And I'm going, if this kid can catch this, there's nothing else you can do. Prep is important, and you were going to get the best prep you could get.
2 more questions. Mr. Stumpf, the ranking Stumpf in the room. My husband just passed away on Saturday from a massive brain bleed. I understand that your wife passed too. How do I do this? My children are young, and I've been a stay-at-home mom for 15 years. How am I going to get through the dark? Is it possible to ever feel happy again?
Yes, you will feel happy again. Because of the 15 years you had with your husband.
If not more, the kids are just, she's been a stay-at-home mom for 15 years.
Oh, yeah.
So
well,
at least
whatever
much.
that length of time is, you cherish those memories. There are new memories you will make. Take your time and pick your own space. Keep the ones you love close to you. Be cautious, but be adventurous. This is exactly what your husband would have wanted for you. You are a part of his legacy. Your children will be, because how you handle this will mean so much to your children. This is a life lesson for them and you, and include them in that journey. Make sure that they're part of that, and you won't go wrong.
Solid advice. One question, and this is one that is, I don't want to say this one has haunted me for the last 2 years, but this is one that I have kicked around in my head. What do you think Mom would have said or thought about my decision to leave my marriage?
Good luck.
I could see that being both positive and negative.
I have often, and I'm still asking myself that question, because I often question advice I give you, thoughts I have about it, trying to have the most accurate information. It's hard to go into all of what got us to this point. She just said, trust your gut. And as long as you do that and you're honest with yourself, game on.
It's the best ending to a podcast ever. Thank you.
You bet.
The west bank of the river. That bank farm, west bank. It gives me hell. Still give it to me in the grove. Okay, one's in from the north. I've got the west bank of the river. Two's going to give it to you in the grove. Roger, give me that gun run. Right along that bag, baby.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Thanks for taking the time to tune in, whether you're listening on an audio-only platform or you're watching on YouTube. I appreciate that you take the time every week to tune in. People ask me a lot, what can they do to help me spread the word? And the answer is actually embedded in the question. The biggest thing you guys can do to help me, if you enjoy the podcast and you think it would be helpful to others, is subscribe and share it with other people. And if you have the time, go on to Apple Podcasts and leave me a rating and a review. If you think the podcast sucks, tell me it sucks and leave a 0-star review or the lowest stars possible. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion, you can go to clearedhotpodcast.com. And there is a contact me button right there, which will land in my inbox. And the last thing, if people are interested in helping out, what you can do is fly the old flag. And by that, I don't mean an actual flag, because I don't have any of those. I'm talking about t-shirts or sweatshirts or hats, whatever it may be. again, clearedhotpodcast.com, click on the shop tab, and hopefully something in there looks like it would be an item you would like to wear around town. And then you can tell people what it is when they ask you. But that is it. The biggest thing I can say is thank you. I truly appreciate it. And until next time, see you.